Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Music Chat with Wendy and Barb. And we have a beautiful, inspirational tune to talk about today, Let There Be Peace on Earth. And this is the second in our trilogy of inspirational music that was inspired for children to be singing it. And so Barb is going to tell us a little bit about it. Barb, what did you find out about this song?
A lot.
Yes.
I mean, I started this whole thing thinking, well, there's probably not going to be too much about it. It always amazes me. It was really fascinating.
I was just saying earlier before we started the chat that it's such a great tune, but it has this great backstory.
It does.
As so many of the songs that we've talked about have these backstories that are pretty amazing.
Maybe that has something to do with its longevity as well.
Perhaps. I mean, they were born out of
great inspiration.
Right, exactly.
But the composers are Jill Jackson Miller and Cy Miller. They were a couple, husband and wife. Now, Jill Jackson Miller had many names. She started out as a radio actress. And then in the 30s, she became a movie actress. And she was in a lot of the Three Stooges films. And it's like, okay. And then she had several different names, though. And I got a little confused when I was trying to look up information.
Yeah, when you start to look her up, you start thinking, who are these other people?
That's right. And I'll just say them for her. First, she was born as Evelyn Merchant. Then it was Harleywood, that sounds like Hollywood.
It does, yeah. Maybe that was a little intent behind that, I don't know.
Jill Martin, Jill Jackson, and Jill Jackson Miller. Very interesting. And as I said, she was an actress. She was very suicidal in the 50s. I think it was the 50s. Anyway, because her first marriage had failed, and she survived that, obviously, but she was very inspired at that point to because of God's presence in her life, and that is where this came from after that suicide attempt.
Yeah, and I think there was a little more to it than that. Well, my understanding is that she was in foster care as a child.
Oh, I didn't get that part.
Yes,
Oh, cool.
So what happened was just by a young age, I don't remember how old she was when her mother died, but very young. And then she became a ward of the state.
I see.
That grew up in Missouri, was her birthplace, I believe, 1913. Orphaned by 12, had a tough time in foster care.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Attended high school in Kansas, though, and had this dream of going to Hollywood, which wasn't that far away if you lived in Missouri. Did 2 years of junior college and then moved to Hollywood, where she was able to live in a home that was for aspiring young actresses. They lived together in this home, and it was a way to sort of stay safe in the big city.
At that time, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And which is probably just what she needed, because she had this shaky start, and so now she had this communal experience of living with others who were like-minded. And so the marriage thing, I think, she went through this divorce as a fairly young woman, but she'd had this real hard, time with foster experiences and this sort of thing. And so I think that's when, she had this, just feeling of despair, failed marriage and tough childhood, and had, just this overwhelming, needed to make this suicide attempt.
Oh, thanks for that, because I had not found that information about her. Sure, it makes a lot of sense.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I have a quote from her later when she was interviewed about that. And the quote says, "When I attempted suicide in 1944 and I didn't succeed, I knew for the first time unconditional love, which God is. You are totally loved, totally accepted just the way you are. In that moment, I was not allowed to die, and something happened to me, which is very difficult to explain. I had an eternal moment of truth in which I knew I was loved and I knew I was here for a purpose.
Yeah.
And this is when she turned a little less more into, she was a little less as an actress was the motivation, as she turned to writing. And so then the start with lyrics.
Right. And I had read that particular quote as well, but having the backstory of how she grew up is very helpful to understand.
Well, it
that
explains
despair.
a little about why a divorce would be so traumatic, too.
Exactly. Another failure in her life and so forth. Well, she certainly wrote lyrics that have inspired us over and over. And she wrote this song. I guess she was already married to Cy at that time.
Right. Cy Miller, they met, I think, in 1949. And he was already very established in Hollywood. He was a Warner Brothers musician and writer.
Right.
Just a Warner Brothers, all-purpose. We've talked about a couple times about how people had lots of hats, and I think he was just a studio musician and writer who did lots of things. And they met and they formed Jan Lee Music. I don't know if I think he wanted to write with her. I think he was the one that kind of said we should do this together. Her the lyrics and he the melodies, and I think that's what happened in the early stages of them teaming together.
It's interesting to me that both of them came from the film industry. That this song was created by people in that kind of environment and whatever. It was fascinating to learn that about this song.
Well, tell us about the mountaintop with
she they had written this song and invited young people to come to this retreat on a mountaintop. And Wendy and I just shared the fact that I was so privileged, and I know you were too, to be a churched person throughout my life. And we had many camps, and I went to choir camps, and I went to retreats, and those experiences are always very, very memorable. And their goal was to bring many, many different kinds of young people together. And this was in like 1955.
Right.
So it was
a week-long retreat in California, it says. Yeah.
And the goal again was to try to, through understanding, learn acceptance and create a better world, really. And what happened was they would stand in a circle at the end of the retreat and sing this song, and they probably sang it all week long.
Yeah, and I think it was written for this. That's when it was written.
Yeah,
it was actually written for this retreat.
That's right. She wrote it for this and used it in this retreat. And from there, it just all of those young people dispersed and sent it to wherever they were, to their churches, to whatever. And of course, it wasn't long before it was dispersed all over the world.
Yes, imagine a whole lot of youth coming together, and they have this arm-in-arm experience of singing this song together after sharing their lives. Different races, different cultures, different backgrounds, different religious points of view. The whole diversity thing going on up there. And we're in the mid-50s. They come out of that experience. They go back to their communities, and everywhere they spread. It spread like wildfire. Wildfire.
Yeah.
And it became and still is all over. That became graduation music.
Yeah.
It became the music at the Boy Scout, ceremony.
And international. It's in every language. One thing that he said, in Cy Miller's words, when he was asked about "Let there be peace on earth," he said, "It was born on a mountaintop in the voices of youth. It continues to travel heart to heart, gathering in people everywhere who wish to become a note in a song of understanding and peace, peace for all mankind. And we talked about the fact that it's such a beautiful combination, a melding of words and music.
Absolutely.
The way he wrote the music to go with this song.
It's perfect.
It's perfect. Every time I hear it, I am inspired.
It has what I feel is a sort of a traditional arc kind of writing, where it has this start that's sort of unassuming but almost immediately takes a life, and the 3/4 meter that it has with the long note values, if it's
forward.
sung properly, it just takes you. It takes you along.
Forward. Yeah, it does.
And you know, we find as teachers of music, we really struggle to get our students to be expressive and to learn how to shape a phrase, how to put a crescendo here and to pull a phrase.
Right.
And this piece is so simple, and yet it because it's perfectness, it's like perfect simplicity.
Yeah.
It just pulls the singer into being musical, even if you're not very musical to start with.
And it's very diverse. I mean, it's not a song that it has the same melody that just keeps repeating in the same way. It seems like every part of it kind of goes in a little bit different direction. And then when you
Harmonies are really attractive too.
yeah,
You know,
and the middle part, you know, with God as our
Right.
brother, that is so very different, but it brings you right into the last part and that fabulous ending. By the time you're finished with it, you know, you just feel united with everyone
You
else
do.
that is singing it.
It is, I think, a very perfect song.
It is
and,
a perfect song. And
very beautiful, you know, to sing. It's in a nice range for everybody.
yeah,
And it's very accessible, obviously, as you know, intended to be written for children, of course. It has a nice range and lyricism about it, and so her inspiring words born out of this
yeah,
new inspiration that she had found in this experience of being so in despair. And then she became, after the writing of this song, and it had this huge life, you know, it was an award win, it was recognized in many ways throughout the many years during their lifetime and since their lifetimes. It's been recognized, you know, by various honorary type of situations for its inspirational message, you know, for mankind. And she became, it became a book in 2009 after they were gone, children's book, and there was something else. It's been written and arranged as a choir anthem for children and adults.
right.
And in fact, our recording that we're going to share with you at the end, the YouTube link, is the Harlem Boys Choir. It's a beautiful arrangement of the boys choir. You'll hear the young boys and then what we think is probably older boys singing with them. Just beautiful. I think you'll really enjoy hearing that. Yeah, I was going to say she became a motivational speaker later in life, and you know, talked quite a bit about her life experience, and really made it. This what became her goal was to spread peace and encourage people to be open to each other, and so that's what she ended up doing.
Well, and we talked about also, it goes back to the first thing you said about after her suicide attempt that she found eternal accepting peace. And so I kind of took it one step further in thinking about it. And I also think that a person could accept it at a different level, that it's your inner peace as well, and that once you are able to feel that inner peace, then you are able to pass it around, and you're able to be more accepting, and that it's universal to everyone to be able to have that piece, and it brings us together. So that's just at a little bit different level, I think, that you could look at it. I remember one all-state chorus, when my students were in all-state chorus, one of the pieces was "Let There Be Peace on Earth," and I remember this beautiful conductor. She is the assistant to Henry Leck in the Indianapolis Children's Choir. I apologize to you because I cannot remember her name, but she was a lovely person, and the way she taught that song to those 150 children, I will never forget it. It was so inspiring, and I am sure that those children will carry that with them forever.
I bet. How long ago was that?
Well, I would say it was probably 12 years ago. You know, maybe 11 or 12 years ago.
Not so long ago.
No, it was right before I retired.
Right.
So, wow, that was very memorable, and I know those children must have. The performance was amazing. So
Yeah, I'll bet.
I'm sure that they will remember that forever. So she certainly did a lot with her life, and aren't we glad that suicide attempt did not work?
Well, that's for sure, and it's a powerful thing. It sounds like it was a pretty powerful experience for her.
Absolutely.
And so I'll share one last little trivial thing. I thought this was kind of interesting because this is as recently as 2019. There's a thing called the Global, it's the International Sheet Music Day, which is a global event. And it says that this song, "Let There Be Peace on Earth," is listed regularly on Billboard's countdown as one of the greatest ballads ever written. And for 7 decades, this top 40 classic has brought continents together with its brilliant melody and gravitating lyrics. And it was chosen then as the Global Sheet Music of the Year piece. Yeah. And they reissued it, I think, probably with a new cover and whatnot. I'm not sure exactly what happens when you get that honor, but that was just in 2019.
I know, that's awesome.
So that was just yesterday, practically. This song, 50, 60 years later, is still having far-reaching impacts, and I think we need a song a day like this.
I know. It is something that I always am inspired by every time I sing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the choirs, there is a more powerful feeling when it's sung by a choir because it is sung by many different kinds of people.
Well, and the one line in there, "in perfect harmony," is one of the pieces of lyric, and you have to sing it with some harmonies, and you'll hear those in the recording. So, so we'll conclude. I just want to remind you that this is the second in a trilogy. We started last week talking about William Bradbury and his writing of "Savior Like a Shepherd Lead Us," and he and his co-writer, the lyric writer for that, wrote the lyric and the music were intended for children, and today this, of course, was intended for children as well. And next week we're going to do the last of our trilogy. We're going to come back and talk about Lowell Mason again and some of the music that he wrote and how he was influential in writing for music for children. And so we really enjoyed learning a little bit more about this piece, and hope you'll enjoy it too. Enjoy the Harlem Boys Choir singing it, and we'll see you next time on the Music Chat.
Bye.